Thank you, listeners. It is time for our radio show today, Elko Live, in which we get our regular update with Elko County School Superintendent CJ Anderson joins us today. We're kind of going to bunch up a few things, some agenda items going into the new year, maybe a little recap of some highlights of the past year. A lot's happened, CJ, so we might not have enough time in just a half an hour for all that. So
yeah, absolutely. It's one of these times of year where it's like, there's, someone says, hey, what's new? And it's, oh, nothing. But really, I mean, schedule's packed, agendas are packed, meetings, interviews, just all sorts of stuff going on all the time. And so, lots going on. And also, thank you for having me on. I usually start with gratitude for the opportunity to speak. And so thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely, CJ. We look forward to these conversations. I know the community does. They tell us so. And we appreciate hearing it directly from the superintendent, who, of course, is the advisor, as are all those at central office, but taking cues from campuses around the Elko County School District, the community, certainly, but the Elko County School Board of Trustees. That's really where the buck stops.
Absolutely. Yep. They're they're the bosses, so to speak. Since you bring up our wonderful trustees, maybe that's something I can share about is semi-recently. I guess this would have been maybe a week or two ago. We went to there's an annual conference that school board trustees are able to go to for the state of Nevada. We always call it the NASB conference, and while we were there, it was as many trustees as could make it, and from our district, 4 of our 7 were able to go. Others had other commitments and such, but really kind of uplifting, wonderful event. It was down in Las Vegas. Usually it's been over in Tahoe, and this time it was down there, and had some great keynote speakers. One of them talking to us, a lot about the focus of why we do what we do, and making sure our decisions are kid-centered and generated, and making sure we're doing what's best for our students. And obviously everyone's got needs, right? Like our teachers have needs, all of our staff have needs, our the parents in the community, partners have needs related to our schools. But in the end, we always want to make sure our attention is focused on serving our students, and so that was really good. We also had a wonderful presentation from a keynote speaker. He's the CEO of a nationally recognized organization, which is it's essentially the best organization in the country for technology and education. And by super coincidence, that gentleman, it was actually one of the fun parts of the conference. That gentleman happens to be someone I've known literally my entire life. He and my older brother were same age, best friends growing up, and it just so happened that we both became passionate about education. I became a superintendent, and he became who he's become. He's the CEO of this wonderful organization. He was actually a deputy director or something for one of the presidential administrations for technology and education. So he's nationally recognized, and so it was good to have him there. And then just lots of breakout sessions for all of our board members and for me to participate in and think about how we're governing our school district and making good financial decisions. And some of them went to sessions on how to evaluate me appropriately, so make sure I'm doing a good job. And I could go on, but I won't name every session we attended. But it was just a good conference, and more than anything, I really appreciate the opportunity for us to get to spend time together to make sure we all have a common goal and vision surrounding how we want to direct our school district. So really good time well spent. Yeah,
it does seem like this school board, this board of trustees in particular, there are diverse members on the board, CJ, so it's not as though you're working with one like mind, but they are respectful. They've overcome a lot, just like a lot of school boards around the state and around the country, especially coming out of COVID. But it seems like things are going pretty well. If we don't want to, be too optimistic, I guess. Yeah, no, I think every board member, and I included, would say that we're happy with how things are going. We definitely want to get better. And what I really appreciate about our board of trustees is there aren't. It's not like everyone's in there just approving and passing and rubber stamping things that are on the agenda. We have very thoughtful considerations.
one of the things that kind of surprised me the most about our meetings, as I took this job and we got our new board members in, was just how many questions they had about our agenda items, right? Like between the time an agenda posts, like we had one post this morning, and Tuesday, board members have that much time, that's it, to look over an agenda and become well informed about the topics that they're gonna have to vote on, 5 days later. And so they really do their homework and looking through things, and for whatever isn't clear, they ask a load of questions. And it's, the questions aren't to question our abilities or how good of a job we're doing, but it's very clear that they're seeking to understand exactly why things are done the way they are, and to try to find ways to improve and get better. And so they're very good that way, where they're not just there serving out a term, like they're actually trying to have a great impact and truly want to understand how our district operates and help in any way that they can from the position that they sit in.
Elko County School Board of Trustees, and we're talking with our Superintendent CJ Anderson. As you mentioned, the agenda, so for the closing meeting of the year on Tuesday the 19th, the budget, that's always the big news, and we heard a lot of news about, the latest legislative session, that the county would be swimming in money, but then we also heard the reality of the offset of that, and then we got the raises, which will be implemented, and you have agreements with Elko County classroom teachers, and then also the classified staff, I believe, the others.
Yeah, that's right. So this time of year, usually we're a little behind the eight ball on having our so this meeting actually wasn't a regular scheduled meeting, the one for Tuesday. It's a special meeting, is what we call them. And our district, we needed more time for our auditor to complete our audit. And December is always a time when you do an augmented budget. And so we can't do an augmented budget until the audit's done to verify financials. And so anyway, because the audit was taking a little longer, we were going to be able to get that done for the one meeting in December, but we also can't wait until January to do that. So that's why we called the special meeting, and it will be very hyper-focused on that. And so we will receive an audit report from that audit, and we'll also, Julie, our CFO, will present to us regarding the augmented budget, where we sit from a projected ending fund balance standpoint, and how we're going to, what we have to look at moving forward. And, always keeping in mind that when you have a budget the size that we do, so much is just projected, right? Like we anticipate spending on this, we hope to spend that. And so with budgets like this, there's always changes and fluctuation that happen. You try to stay as close to it as you can. So this augmented budget kind of reflects, okay, now that we know what the ending fund balance for sure was back, at the end of the fiscal year, how that adjusts what we anticipated before, and now moving forward to the end of the year, and trying to keep our spending and our decisions within that budget. So we're in a good spot. And yeah, we did get an influx of money this year, and it was very much needed. But as has been well documented, our district a couple of years ago had $4.5 or $5 something million swept from them, and so we've been trying to combat the negative effects of that for the last year and a half or 2 years. A lot of that money, as we know, most of our operating costs goes into the salaries and benefits of our amazing staff. And so with a massive influx of money, we also anticipated and were able to work on a pretty good, I think it's a pretty good raise, 8.5% for this year and 2.5% for the next year for our teachers, our certified staff, and for our support staff. And we're actually still finishing negotiations with our remaining union, which is our administrators. And so that one will, I think we've got one more meeting left with them. So, trying to keep that influx of money to combat, like I said, what happened with the sweep of money, to also properly compensate our employee base within our means. And then, keeping in mind too that we are coming up on the end of what a lot of people have referred to as the fiscal cliff, which is in reference to so many different funding sources that were provided from both the federal and state government in response to the pandemic and the effects it had on our schools. And so very wonderfully, we had an influx of money at that time, but none of that money was intended to it's not being sustained from those sources. And so deciding what can stay and what can go based on what our financial capabilities are. So lots of decisions to be made as we try to recover from the past and move forward into the future. And then some of that influx of money that came from this last legislative session, there's more. It didn't all come at the front end of the 2 years. A big percentage did, but there's still more for this biennium that's going to come in to increase our budget for next year. And so, anyway, it's not doom and gloom, but it's not like we're Uncle Scrooge swimming in the coins in the vault either.
Yeah, I always love that image, and everybody gets it too when you talk about that. So one fund that is distinct, CJ, is the capital project, obviously capital project funds. That's also up for discussion during the special meeting. We do know that some of this obviously going forward hinges on what Elko County Commissioners will decide in their January meeting regarding capital funding for the future.
Yeah, the wheels are moving there. So we have our remaining funds still from Pay As You Go, and we've I'm not even going to say try to be like we have been very responsible with those funds that remained after both Pay As You Go did not pass, and then the bond election also failed. We were left with a certain amount of money that still remained in that account, and we've been very good about using that sparingly and truly defining what a need was during this time. However, moving forward, it is unsustainable to not have a funding source, and so we're going from, if we go back to 4 or 5 years ago, we went from having a good, like a healthy amount of revenue that would go towards our capital projects to all of a sudden a total absence of money, and we're looking forward to having a measure of something coming in. And as a reminder for people, the county has a decision to make on how much tax rate they're going to apply towards us, towards our capital improvement funding, and that would be anywhere from a 1 to 25 cent range. Depending on who you talk to, people have opinions on what that's going to be, but what I know is I've had plenty of conversations with county commissioners, with our county manager, Amanda Osborne, and county's lawyer, and all sorts of people, people from the state too, who put that bill, AB 519, together. That kind of was the impetus for this tax rate. And so, I know they're working on what they think is the appropriate amount to give. And I assure people that no matter what that number is, we have plenty of good projects to put that towards. And those are projects that are collectively decided upon in our capital improvement plan by a committee of representatives from all across our county, and we'll make sure that gets put to good use. As a reminder, the state also has a fund that we can match from that tax rate towards. So the beauty of the bigger that tax rate number is, if it's on the 25 cent end of the 1 to 25 cent range, then that means that's just that much more that we can request and receive matching funds for, therefore making that money go I don't know if it's further or farther. I think it's further, making that money go further. And so obviously, and the benefit goes to our students in that scenario. And so what we're able to do moving forward with that, obviously significantly depends on what that tax rate's going to be. And have a lot of trust and confidence that the county commission will see the benefit of having a higher tax rate that can help us do more. And so look forward to them taking those steps, but know that they have their own processes and timeline and they have a separate committee that's part of this whole equation as well. So lots of people meeting together to make sure the best decision is made.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple things too. We do know that there is a separate committee. Now, does the first tranche of money have to go to the Owyhee School, CJ, or can we separate those out? Or
no. So are you talking about the tax rate that the commission
Yes.
would? Yeah. So that actually is unrelated to the Owyhee School. It's 100% unrelated. Well, I mean, let me rephrase that. It is. It does not have to be. Now, if we had something we wanted to use that towards, let's say the Owyhee project ends up costing more than the $64.5 million that the state has apportioned, then theoretically we could use some of those funds for that as well. But those funds are they're in separate pots. There's the pot of $64.5 million that is solely dedicated to the construction of a new school in Owyhee, and then whatever comes from that tax rate, we're able to use as a district towards whatever project we want. And so it could be applied towards Owyhee, but it doesn't have to be, and could really go to anything.
that's a really important consideration and distinction. And then, CJ, the separate committee is the separate committee which includes, we understand, county commissioners, members, I think, from the school district board of trustees, members from the Owyhee community, unless, I mean...
So it's not, I don't think it includes someone from the Owyhee community.
So
I think
that's
it's someone
the separate,
from...
okay.
Yeah, there's a requirement to have a member of tribal leadership in there, but we in Elko County we have various tribes, and so I believe the county has someone from tribal leadership in the Elko area, and so I believe that is their appointment because for that position. Then on our side, the school district appointed one of our trustees, and then we also appointed Jennifer Roberson from Ormaza, who has a lot of experience in the construction of school capital projects. And then the county commission has John Carr, who is going to be on there. And then they have someone they're supposed to have appointed from a financial perspective, someone with experience in capital improvement financial side of things. So that's that committee.
That's that committee. Good. And we'll go over that in detail. I think once commissioners are getting things ironed out. I think there was a little confusion early on, fair to say, of who was organizing what, as according to the Senate bill.
Yeah, I mean, so according to the bill, the county commission has to put this together. It's their committee and theirs to have report to them. And so I would say it's their committee. But I think, it would be unwise for me in my position to just be like, oh, well, that's your thing. Get it together. We've talked with one another. I've attended their meetings. They've been paying attention to ours, and we're trying to work together to make sure we're all on the same page going forward, and just trying to do our best there with making sure we're working together. But by the letter of the bill, it's their committee, and whatever the committee recommends, it's a recommendation to the county commission.
So where does the Board of Trustees fit in? I mean, do they make recommendations to the Elko County School Board of Trustees, which is its own elected body, or how does it fit?
I think because we have a trustee that is on that committee, I'm sure that trustee would be responsible for communicating back to us about what the committee as a whole was recommending. And then, of course, just being mindful of what's going on in those meetings and what reports they're giving back to the county commission. We're going to be responsible in paying attention to that and make sure we're listening to the recommendations. And the committee in and of itself is a review and recommend is kind of for people that are in this world, that's the lingo of what that committee does. Because there are committees that make, make hard decisions and have to make those. This committee very specifically is to review money in and out that the school district spends on capital projects from money that is related to this bill. So not every bit of money that the school district spends, but money that is related to AB 519, right? So they review those to make sure, we're doing it right, which is fine. We have confidence that we are, and are very transparent in all of our financial records, and so perfectly happy to have them do that. And then they would also, given that the county is apportioning some additional tax rate to this, they have some buy-in in what we do with that money. And so they would also take a look at, our current capital improvement plan, upcoming ones in upcoming years, and say, hey, these are projects that I think we would really like to see prioritized, right? And that would help us in making those decisions about which projects to go to. And so it would be, they are one committee that would help us make those decisions. We also have our own internal capital improvement committee. As I mentioned earlier, the Board of Trustees in the end has the final vote on what we do with those. So, I mean, there's all sorts of elements to the equation, but, this committee comes along as it's kind of an added check and balance and review and recommendation, so we're making the best decisions we can.
Well, thanks, CJ. I think that is clear. It is an additional layer of oversight. There were some people who, expressed that they wanted that when the bond failed. Then obviously pay-as-you-go failed first, and then any kind of renewal. And this would be, so in maybe the true sense of the word, an advisory council to, or commission or board, advisory capacity to the Elko County Commission, subject to open meeting law.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes, that's what I'm counting on as well.
That's what I understand.
Absolutely,
Yep.
and I read the statute, I know. So let's hope that that's all on the same page as well, because then the community can participate in the oversight as well, which is all anybody asks for, right, CJ?
100%. Yeah, and I mean, we would love community input on this. We've had many different meetings where we kind of wish we'd heard a little more and had a little more feedback. And so the more feedback you have, the better informed your decision can be. And I'm sure that committee, the county commission, our school board of trustees, we all welcome public feedback on how we can help our buildings, our school facilities, be in the best shape they can for our kids.
And I think all this was reflected in the resolution that was passed by the County Commission during their most recent meeting a couple weeks ago. And so they'll be back in January for a second reading. And then hopefully that's when we'll, because as you said, and rightfully so, I watched the meeting online and then I went back and replayed a section. I could not find, but it could be my oversight completely. I could not find where they discussed a specific tax rate. So that will, I think, also be discussed in the January meeting in which they approve that resolution and maybe set the rate.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great if that happens in January.
Yeah, I did send a text to Commissioner Carr because he moved the resolution, and hopefully he might get back to me during this program to let me know if indeed they did discuss an actual tax rate. I kind of hate to put it out there if it's not not accurate. Let's just
me
not
too.
do it.
And I've had so many different conversations with different people that
Have you good then?
I've heard people say, oh, it's going to be 1 penny, and I've heard people say, oh, it's got to be 25, and I've heard numbers in between, and it's like, I've already made it clear. I think 25 cents is the way you get the most bang for your buck, right? And so, but that's not my decision to make. It's mine to help. It's my job to help inform what would benefit the school district well, and it's theirs to have to make. And at this point, anything is better than 0 cents of tax rate. And so whatever I can, like I said earlier, I promise that whatever it does generate for us, we will make really good, solid, transparent decisions with that rate. And so, the more the better, but we trust their decision making.
All right, there you go. Mature, responsible leadership. That's what we all could benefit from more of, certainly. Talking with our Elko County School Superintendent, CJ Anderson. Again, the special meeting on Tuesday the 19th will be to really look over all the budget issues. The taxation issue will be furthered in January by Elko County Commissioners. We'll all know more after their next regular meeting. I wanted to make sure, parentguidance.org, CJ. We do know that you had your first session, hoping that was a success. It's something that parents can access to get some really good information, contemporary information too, about the real issues that students pre-K through 12 are facing in public schools right now. So I want to let you give an update on that if you like.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick plug for those resources again. I know we've talked about it probably multiple times on this show, and we'll continue to, because the word needs to spread around. And everything I say about this, I just want everyone who can hear to spread the word. This is for all community members. You do not have to have a child who attends Elko County School District. I would love for families who homeschool to be able to use these resources, for families from charter schools, from private schools, from online schools, like whatever. These are community resources, and for the last year and a half, I've been working with people from all around the county and from other organizations like the Cook Center for Human Connection and ParentGuidance.org to, a lot of people have been working together to put these resources together for our community because they're so needed, and recognizing that we're not the only ones, helping, but we're committed and dedicated to doing that, and so again, that's for everyone, and when you go to ParentGuidance.org, there's a place where it asks you, where you're located, and when you put in that you're from Elko, there's not like it's like a crazy screening process. It's kind of a scout's honor. Okay, you're from Elko, you have access to these resources, and so go there. So there's two things that everyone can get immediately, like any day, anytime, you can go utilize them. One of those is their on-demand courses for mental health and parenting and well-being, and the topics are very wide range of options that you can choose from, and I've kind of read those more in detail in here before, but really worth looking into, whether it's anxiety and depression or ADHD or defiant behavior or screen and social media behavior or video game addiction or it just goes, eating disorders, like the list goes on and on. And so if as a parent you're thinking, man, it would be really, I'm having trouble with this one thing with my kid, because guess what? I'm going to whisper it into the mic. I don't know if people can hear when you whisper. Parenting is hard, and everybody is struggling, right? Like, I've never met one person that's like, I am the best parent ever, right? Like, everyone feels like they're the worst. I've always said that when someone's like, I'm the worst dad ever, I'm like, you can't be, because I am, right? And that's how everyone feels. Like, you're doing your best, but man, there's no manual. You just do your best. And so, but you don't have to do it alone is the point. And so if you're thinking, man, I'm struggling with this one thing with my kid, if you haven't looked at these on-demand courses, just go check them out. And then the other resource to go with that too is free one-to-one parent coaching, and you fill out a request form basically, and within about 24 hours you get linked up with an expert in the field of mental health and well-being, and they can help kind of just be a sounding board for you and talk through your issues and just help you navigate the difficulty that is parenting in this age, because we were all much younger when we were raised, and the world is so different. It's incredibly different from when we were kids. So anyway, that's that. Now you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned the webinar, or maybe I'm just
we kind
being
of did,
intuitive about it.
Yeah, we did a little bit, but not.
So anyway, we had our first of a series of 5 webinars. Technically, it's 10 webinars that we invested in. It's 5 in English and 5 in Spanish, but they happen concurrently, and they will so it's 5 dates and 2 sessions going concurrently, 1 in English, 1 in Spanish. So these are very well advertised on our website, and the first one happened. I think it was the 28th of November, and it was a topic on social media protecting your child. And so it was a look into what social media is, what capacities those things have, how you talk with your kid, how you help have a healthy relationship with social media, because it's not the devil as much as people want to say. Like, there are very good things about social media. We constantly spread good news and things like that through social media. So there's good things about it, but just being an aware parent about it. And so if you caught that, thank you so much for registering and attending. If you knew about it but didn't really have the info, or if this is your first time hearing, you can catch that recording. It's on our website. It's there posted, so you can go back and view it after the fact. But the next date that we have coming up and the next topic, so the next date is January, sorry, give me a second, I'm scrolling on my phone here. It's January the 23rd at 6 p.m. And so that's a Tuesday evening. And the topic for that session is titled Helping Your Child Succeed, 3 Parenting Styles. And this was one of the 2 big, we did a survey to get people's opinion on which, we had a list of 40 topics we could choose from. And this was one of the 2 highest ones that people were really interested in. And so I'm excited for that one to be available for our next session. And very importantly, it's we really want people to register for these. So if you are even remotely interested or planning on attending, get registered, because not only does that get it in your calendar and as a priority, but if something comes up, what will happen is you will get an email of the recording sent to you directly, and you can watch it in your own time. We had that happen with a couple of our board members who were registered, and then something came up and they couldn't be there, but they were able to get it immediately after the fact, and we're really grateful for that. It also helps us because we have made a financial investment into these resources for our community. The feedback from people was, we need more resources. Well, we got some resources, and so we have to look into and be responsible of whether or not these are being utilized, right? So if we're not getting registrations and people aren't attending, then we have to look at whether or not it's actually something we should be putting money into. And so we really want people to make use of these resources, so please do register. The link on the website, if you go to our Elko County School District page, ecsdnv.net, the very first thing you're going to see in a scrolling banner across the top is a link to this webinar, and how to register for it, and all the other stuff I mentioned from parentguidance.org with the coaching and the on-demand courses. Those are right there on our webpage too, under the additional resources, the mental health tab.
And something really important with all of this, it's free and it's confidential. CJ, when you talked about, asking a question, you can ask those questions you haven't been able to ask anybody else.
Yep.
Is this normal, right? And what's the behavior or what's the issue? And then you get a free, confidential response from a trusted professional.
Yeah, it is absolutely confidential, and that was kind of one of the fun things about the webinar was it was interactive, but you didn't know who was saying what. They used a platform called Menti where, whether it's polls or free open responses, like people were contributing to the conversation. It was interactive, but nobody had to know that I was saying, like for example, one of the questions, I don't mind saying, it was like, what app do you use to monitor your kids, whatever? And I was like, I don't have an app I'm using, right? And someone and other people threw out 3 or 4 that they were using. I was like, I've never even heard of that one, right?
And what a great tool!
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so people were able to kind of learn from each other, but I didn't have the embarrassment, right, of in an open room where there's a bunch of people and just slouch in my chair and be like, oh, I thought I was doing a good job, but I'm not. Like nobody knew that. I could just confidentially say, nope, I have no idea.
Exactly. Yeah. And then everybody else. So you got to ask the question and everybody else was wondering,
yep.
I wish I could ask that question. So very cool. So parentguidance.org, but go to the Elko County School District website, ecsdnv.net. Get registered, even if you cannot make that meeting, because then they will send you a follow-up saying, hey, it's online now, go back, review it, listen to it as a podcast as you're, cooking or wrapping presents or whatever it is you might be doing. Because it could really, really help. Yep. And that's what we heard. People would like some help. So, because the world is spinning a lot faster. Yeah. So, CJ, did we get to all these various topics today? I know I said we kind of do a year in review, but honestly, I don't know if there's anything that really stands out for you that just you're very proud of, either, from a personal perspective or from the staff or school board, just some achievement that maybe seemed insurmountable at the time.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is just the progress we're making. When I look back at where we were a year and a half ago, when we were first jumping into our strategic plan, we identified so many things that we would love to see change and help our district move forward, whether it's from curriculum adoption or mental health resources or supports for students in our schools with positions, employment positions. The list goes on and on of our 4 pillars of our strategic plan. And what I can see now, looking back to when we started that process a year and 2 months ago, to when it was approved about 8 months ago, to where we are now, like, very clear, actionable steps have been taken, and we are very much moving in the right direction. We definitely have lots to do still, and I'm actually having to tell myself every day, like, hey, pull the reins back a little bit. Like, you can't You're not going to change the world in one contract cycle, right? You're not going to, like, people need time to adjust. People have to learn the new curriculum. People have to get acclimated to the new resources. We have people in new leadership positions who are trying to have their mark and make their impact and get these processes into place. And so we're definitely moving forward, and I can see that. Would I love to just put all these things in place and then all of a sudden have every metric that we utilize, say things are up in the stars and doing so great? Yeah, I would love that. But the reality is those things take time. And so I love that we're heading in the right direction. I love that we have people that are dedicated to that. We have so many amazing staff members who, none of this is possible without. And every day I'm grateful for them. And we have amazing teachers. We have amazing administrators. We have amazing bus drivers, fill in the blank. I can't go through the whole list, but we have so many good employees and educators who work hard every day, and that's what I'm most pleased with. It's not any individual accomplishments. It's really as a collective whole, everyone focusing on what we need to do to move our district forward, and I think it's obvious that that's happening, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, onward and upward then. 2024 is almost here.
Right around the corner.
Yes. Thank you, CJ, so much for our visits, our regular visits here on the radio. You can follow along. You have a YouTube channel. There's plenty of information. School board meetings are posted on that YouTube channel. So if you didn't make the meeting, you can watch the whole thing in its entirety. Features a lot of talented students there at the beginning of the meetings, which is always nice. So good news. Yeah.
I even do little 10 to 15 minute recaps. So if you don't want to watch a 2.5 hour meeting, which I totally get. Downside, you have to listen to me the whole time, but it is a brief overview of what we covered. And then if you're listening, you hear, he sort of glossed over that. I'd really like to know more about that. Well, then you can go right back into the meeting, find that exact spot, and listen to that item that you are super interested in. And so, take advantage of those resources. It's something we put out there because we want people to be involved and informed. So please do.
Thank you, CJ Anderson, School District Superintendent for Elko County Schools. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today for Elko Live. Wishing you a very wonderful, happy holiday and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the things, right, going into the new year.
Happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us today.